87.8 FM and also streaming to Facebook. My name is Rajiv Danjal and I'm presenting a show called Plugged In, IT Skills for Everyone. Now, this show is normally broadcast on a Thursday, but today I've been given an extra slot, so you have me for approximately an hour, and I'm going to recap some of the things that I said last week and start presenting some new information. So, for those who were listening last Thursday, I started explaining that IT is actually information technology. And so information really means digital information, so information presented as numbers. You may hear people say that, oh, IT is all ones and noughts, and strictly speaking, it is all ones and noughts, and because it's all ones and noughts, it's very, very easy for technology to process numbers. Okay, I started talking about the history of photographs. I started explaining that in the old days we used to take photographs with a camera. We used to take photographs using film based on silver and other substances. We would take a picture and hope it was right, and we couldn't really tell until we developed that picture. We'd take it to a photography developing company and we'd get either 24 or 36 pictures back, and some of them were good and some of them were not very good, and we just had to throw them away, and we couldn't always tell if people had their eyes open or were looking the wrong way. Today we live in a very, very different world now. You can snap away, take as many pictures as you like, throw away the ones that you don't like. You can either do it straight away or you can do it later by observing the pictures on another device. Okay, so that was a recap of pictures and how today in the modern digital age we now think really of pictures as lots and lots of numbers, and each number, each little picture element, each pixel is a number, and because it's a number we can do lots and lots of things with picture elements. Some it's very, very good. We can remove people that we didn't want in the picture. We can add extra things, and for all the good that we now have with digital photography, unfortunately we do have some bad as well, because pictures can be faked, pictures can be photoshopped, so it's a good world and it's a bad world. Well, at least it can be in the wrong hands. So that was a reminder of pictures, photography, and then secondly I moved on to video, and I said that with video we used to buy DVDs, we used to buy VHS cassettes, we could watch video, and today again in the digital world, a video is a sequence of photographs like it always used to be, but the photographs were line by line. These things were called rasters, so we used to have 625 lines on our TV, and each line was analog. Today each line is digital, and because it's digital there's a lot more we can do, and now we can buy very, very big TVs with even more lines. So now you'll hear of HD, high definition, which is over 1,000 lines. On some of the latest TVs we have 2,000 lines, even 4,000 lines. Really big screens, very, very clear. The digital world gives us so many options. So last week, as I say, I was talking mostly about information. Today I'm going to start talking a little about the technology. Okay, the technology. So the other half of IT is information, and the second half is technology. So what does the average person really want to know about technology? The most accessible piece of technology is the mobile phone. The mobile phone is a screen. Um, in the old days, we had small screens. Today, we have very, very high quality screens, maybe 6 inches across. Very, very easy to see. Lots and lots of color. Very, very high resolutions. So, what is a mobile phone really about when we're talking about technology? So, the first and most important thing for people to be interested in is it big enough for your eyes? At my age, my eyesight isn't as good as it used to be, so I like a nice big screen um, with modern computer technology, which is basically what a mobile phone is. A mobile phone is a computer. It's a small computer, but it's physically inside a computer. And so, a little bit like a car, you can think of a computer as an engine. Now, cars only really have one engine, and the engine has different cylinders. Powerful cars have lots and lots of cylinders. Weaker, simpler car engines have only about 4 cylinders, occasionally less than that. Motorcycles often only have 2 cylinders or even 1 cylinder. Okay, so with a mobile phone, the more powerful the mobile phone is, the more engines it has inside. So you can think of it as either one engine. You can either think of it as lots of engines. You can quite often find 4 or 8 what we call CPUs, central processing units. The more engines you have inside your mobile phone, the more powerful it is, the more different things it can do. If you have been given an old mobile phone from somebody else who doesn't need it anymore, you might not find it so powerful. But the number of CPUs inside your engine, inside your mobile phone, makes it more powerful. The second thing to think about is how much running memory does it have. And quite often these days, the very latest of mobile phones have um, billions, billions of storage units. Each of these storage units is called a byte, and a byte, in very, very simple terms, is a character. Okay, so for example, my name Rajiv, Rajiv, that's 5 characters. We write down Rajiv, 5 different pieces of information. Likewise, inside of a computer, that's stored as 5 individual pieces of information. Sometimes it needs more information because it might be colorful. So, simple text, black and white text, doesn't need a lot of space, but if we have lovely, wonderful colors, then we need more space. Okay, now text is not the only thing we store in a mobile phone. What you see mostly is text, but you also see pictures. So last week I was talking about pictures. The higher the resolution of your phone, it means the clearer are the images. And today we not only have simple images, we have what we call high definition images, and we have something called HDR, very high range. So some mobile phones can easily be seen in bright light in the daytime, and others are not so good. So depending on the needs of your eyesight, the quality you should think about is, what do you need? What do you need for your eyesight? Okay, so 2 things I've talked about. One is the size of the phone, the size of the screen, and secondly, the amount of running memory. Okay, now the third thing I want to talk about is what we call long-term storage space. So for example, I like to listen to music sometimes. All that music can be stored on a mobile phone. I can take lots and lots of pictures. All of those pictures, all of that music, all of those videos that I've taken on my phone, they all consume storage space. Okay, storage space. Now, storage space comes in a variety of offerings. Your mobile phone will have storage space built in gigabytes. So a gigabyte is a billion bytes. A billion sounds like a lot, but it is in fact quite a lot when it comes to text messages. But you can rapidly fill a billion bytes by taking photographs, by taking videos. So the more information you want to keep on your mobile phone, the more memory you require. Fortunately, most mobile phones have an extra slot to insert extra memory. So if you are the kind of person who needs to keep lots and lots of information, and as I say, information, IT information, yeah, has to be stored in the technology of the mobile phone. Okay, so the more information that you have, the more memory you need, and fortunately you can insert what we call a small memory device into the computer, and therefore extend the amount of memory you have on your computing device, on your mobile phone in this case. We live in a modern world. I didn't talk much about the internet last week. I'm going to talk about the internet later on today. The internet is also a place where you can store information. Okay, you can store information. So again, photographs, videos, any other information, textual, for example, words, writing, can all be stored in addition to your mobile phone, mobile phone's internal memory, in terms of the extra memory that you can insert into the mobile phone and on the internet. So now there is lots and lots of capacity for information. Okay, now one word of warning: the information on your mobile phone, if you lose your mobile phone, you may not be able to get some of the information back that's stored on your internal memory, or in fact in your extended memory. However, if you store information on the internet, you have a much greater chance of being able to see it on different devices and keep it. So later on I'll be talking about data backups. It's a big area, not really something you would probably be concerned with at the beginning, but as your data, as your information becomes valuable to you, then how to protect it becomes an issue. Okay, so I've talked a little bit about mobile phones there, about the technology itself. One other thing I'm going to talk about mobile phones is, as I've just started talking about security, you should always try and keep some sort of barrier to stop other people looking at your information. Okay, now security is always a problem. Most often it's a number. For example, a lot of simple people think, oh my god, I'm going to struggle to remember this number, so they will, for example, put in something like 123 I want, or even 1234, or even 12345 6. I would try not to do that, because that's the first thing a hacker will try. So if you leave your phone on the bus or you drop it somewhere, that's probably the first thing somebody's going to try. They're going to think, oh, I wonder what's on this phone. I wonder if I can get some valuable information out of it. I wonder if I can sell it to somebody else. And of course, it becomes valuable to somebody else if they can unlock the phone. Without unlocking the phone, it really isn't any good to anybody else. But if you can unlock the phone, for example, by trying all zeros as a password, if you try 1 2 3 4 5 6, other people can unlock your phone. Other people, they use birthdays. Um, some birthdays, particularly if somebody knows you, they will have a good guess. If they think, oh my God, that person has just dropped that phone, I know who that person is. Let's try their birthday. Let's try one of their children's birthdays. That's a number. So, for example, the 1st of February 1990, they might say 010290 or even 1990. Okay, so mobile phones, because they're so portable, security is an issue. Okay, security is an issue. Protect your information by locking it somehow. A modern concept is facial recognition. So with many phones, particularly the newer ones, you only need to look at the camera on the front of the mobile phone. It'll recognize your face and it will unlock. Okay, so numbers, that's one way. Facial recognition is another way, and a third way is, for example, a fingerprint. So if you put your finger, that again is very simple to use and very difficult for other people to guess at. Almost always there is a second option. So if your fingerprint is dirty or something's happened to your fingers, you can still usually put a number in. So people will always try numbers. So if you've got a nice complicated number, then you should be fairly well protected. Sometimes you might see people with a pattern. So there's quite often there's 9 dots on your screen, and you can make some sort of squiggle. Sometimes that's very easy to do, but of course it's easy for people to have a guess at what kind of squiggle you've done, particularly if they're watching you, particularly if you put the same squiggle in so often that the greasiness of your finger leaves a mark on the screen. So lots to think about, but ultimately make sure you protect the information on your phone. Okay, the second device I'm going to talk about, which again is increasingly common, is what we call a tablet. Okay, a tablet is potentially a big phone. It's usually got a bigger screen, quite often a 7-inch screen or a 10-inch screen. These are a lot easier to use with your eyesight, and as I say, the keyboard, if you want to enter any information into the tablet, then you have a much bigger keyboard available to you. The rest of the technology of a tablet device is very similar to a phone. Quite often you don't make phone calls with a phone, with a tablet rather. However, in this modern age, and I'm going to talk about WhatsApp and other conferencing facilities, which are again quite easy to use on a tablet. Okay, so you can think of a tablet as a big mobile phone, and then moving on from tablets, I'm going to talk about laptops. So laptop is an even bigger screen. It's got a keyboard built in, and a lot of the things you can do on a mobile phone you can do on a PC, on a laptop these days. So you've got generally a lot more technology, a much bigger screen, a big keyboard, a mouse, a separate mouse, rather than using your fingers on a mobile phone to navigate the screen. Okay, so again, depending on what you need to know, what you need to use the technology for, if you want a nice big screen, a tablet or a laptop, or even a big TV screen plugged into a desktop computer, makes it very easy to use. However, for mobility reasons, even a tablet might be a little too big to carry around with you, and therefore a mobile phone is probably the best place to start. And quite often, as I say, depending on how much money you have available, depending on your eyesight, depending on what you want to use, the equipment for a mobile phone might be sufficient for a newcomer to the world of digital IT. Okay, digital IT. Now, we've got a couple more minutes left of this first section. So I've tried to talk about technology this morning. I started talking about information, so IT. The I of IT is information, and how the world of digital information means that we now have so many choices in terms of how we can process information once it's in a digital format. And once it's in a digital format, whether it be an image like a photograph, whether it be a video, whether it be writing, what we call textual information, the world of possibilities is almost endless now. In the second half, I'm going to talk a little bit about the other part of information, as in text, and I'm going to start talking about the internet, which I've not even mentioned yet. And the internet is the bit about plugged in. So in the second part of the show, I'm going to talk about the internet, what plugged in really means. I've talked about IT skills for everybody. I've been very, very gentle. I've been trying to explain everything in details. Some people are probably bored, silly from me, but other people, I hope, have found this information really useful. So as I say, in the second part of the show, I'm going to be talking about text information. Okay, so just a little flavour. I'm going to be talking about newspapers. So today we still have newspapers, we still have magazines, we have flyers, little posters, all of this paperwork is available in a digital format. Okay, all of this information, particularly if it's printed, is like a photograph really. And if you think about a newspaper, if you think about a publishing press, it takes characters, A, B, C, D, numbers, even the photographs that you see in a newspaper. If you look very, very carefully, it's got dots. Very, very carefully, you'll see the small dots. So each dot, as I say, is a piece of information. It's a colour, it's a size, it might be more or less dots, and that is what you see. So as I say, after our break, I'm going to be talking about other sorts of information that we can use technology to process. So as I say, we've got a 6-minute break now, and I shall be back with you shortly. Thank you. to our listeners. My name is Rajiv Danjal, presenting a show called IT Skills for Everybody. It begins with the title of Plugged In, and that's going to be the focus of what I'm going to be talking about in the second part of the show. So, excuse me, I have a very slightly dry voice today. So, I talked a little bit about information, IT skills, and the information is digital information, and digital information is very, very easy to process using technology. So earlier today I was talking about technology. I was talking about mobile phones, I was talking about tablet devices, I was talking about laptops and desktops. Okay. Excuse me, very dry voice today. So what else can we do with this technology? I've talked about images, pictures that we used to take with a camera, and now we can take it with a digital camera. I talked about videos that we used to watch on television. We can now make our own videos using digital technology. And just before the break, I started talking about textual information. So I started talking about newspapers. We all remember newspapers. We still have newspapers today. If you wanted to know what was happening in the world, we had a newspaper delivered to our house, or we went along to the newsagents and we bought a newspaper. We also would buy magazines if you wanted specific information, and sometimes we'll see posters on the walls telling us all sorts of useful information. In today's digital world, all of that is done with technology, and we can use technology to access that same information that we would access using newspapers and magazines. Okay, the difference, of course, is that the information that we used to see in a magazine, or in fact in a newspaper, was often put together the day before, published overnight, delivered around the country, and probably delivered to your house or picked up by yourself, in some cases 24 hours later. The difference with the digital world, of course, is that with, for example, the internet, we can see information very, very recently published. Okay, we can change information. The publishers can change information almost on a live basis. You, for example, have heard of the disaster that's happened in the TV this morning, boats colliding into each other. You can see videos that are almost live. You can get information almost instantly. We could not do that before with magazines. You may well have got a thorough news story, but today, with modern technology, whether it's through a mobile phone, a tablet, a laptop, a desktop, a TV, all of this information now becomes instantly available. Okay, instantly available. So first I'm going to talk about information in textual terms. So textual terms are the words that you see on a newspaper. Today, of course, through the internet, you can now read articles on these devices, on this IT technology. And the good thing, of course, is that for people who need to see it larger, you can make the writing larger on your device. You can make the writing of different brightness. You can, as I say, you can make all sorts of what we call accessibility adjustments to make it easier for you to read. Okay, so some people, their eyes get stressed by seeing black writing on a white background. You can turn it the other way around. You can, for example, change it to white writing on a black background, or in fact any other set of colours that you can adjust to. You can make the writing bigger, you can change the font size, so the font size is the size of the writing. You can, in fact, with modern technology, change the language. So for example, if the language is in English and you want it in a different language, it's quite often possible to see the writing in a language closer to what you might be familiar with. I wouldn't say every single language is possible, but quite a lot of the popular languages are possible. And as I say, Google and some of the other what we call web browsers will change the writing for you to make it more suitable for you. Okay, so with text, with the world of text, the world of writing, we can now make, with the digital age, we can make it far more suitable for the audience. In fact, not only that, you may not want to read it with your own eyes, you may simply want it spoken out to you. You might want the text read out to you whilst you're busy doing something else. So even that becomes possible, and as I say, most of the big browsers will let you do that, and there are podcasts that will speak text for you. There are other applications that will read textual information for you. As I say, the number of applications out there make life much easier than having to go to the shop to buy a newspaper and then to have to throw it away the next day. Okay, so digital technology allows consumers to take that information at a time that's comfortable for them, at a time that's convenient for them, and delivered to them in a fashion that is more suitable to them. Okay, so I talked last week and earlier today about images, and of course images, photographs, we know that they appear in magazines and newspapers. Those same digital images will appear in news articles, videos will appear in news articles, and they're all there for the consumer. And as I say, we can sometimes make the images specifically bigger if we want to look at the image in more detail. We can sometimes make videos, which of course you can't see on a newspaper. We can make those bigger. We can transfer them, we can keep them, we can make copies of them. So information in textual form is a lot more useful today than it used to be in the form of newspapers. Okay, so as a quick summary, we can make lots and lots of changes to textual information to make it suitable for our consumption. Okay, now I briefly mentioned the internet. I mentioned it last week, and now I'm going to really concentrate on the plugged in part. Plugged in. So just like I mentioned last week on Thursday, a computer technology, whether it's a mobile phone, a tablet, a TV, a laptop device, it needs power, and generally it's either plugged in to mains power, or it has its own battery device which at some stage has to be plugged in to charge up. Okay, so that's the first thing we need. We need power. The second thing we need is we need to be able to see it, so our device has to have a screen, and all the devices I've mentioned all have a screen. And then the third thing is you have to be tuned in to some sort of source of information. So on a TV, we tune into a TV station. On a radio, we tune into a radio station. And so, having described all of these parts of being plugged in, we now move over to the internet. Okay, the internet is a huge source of information, and the internet, again, we have to be plugged in. Okay, so we need a device, we need a piece of technology, whether it's a mobile phone, again, all the devices I've mentioned. We now have a need to have them powered up. We have a need to have them switched on, and we now need to be plugged in one way or another. Okay, now the good thing, of course, with mobile phones, with tablets, and in fact with laptop devices and desktop devices, we now have an alternative to a wire, which is what we used to use. We used to use a wire plugged into what we call our broadband router, and our broadband router would be what connects us to the internet. We now have some alternatives, and the alternative is Wi-Fi. And the Wi-Fi signal, think of it similar to a wire, but it's called Wi-Fi because it's wireless. Okay, wireless. So just like tuning into a radio station or tuning into a television station, what you're doing is you're tuning into your broadband router. Okay, your broadband router has to have a connection to the internet. So if you use Wi-Fi, you will generally be using your own home internet device. Of course, with mobile phones, there is an alternative. You can now get internet access via your mobile phone's service. So for example, if you're catching a bus somewhere, if you're out and about shopping, you can now connect to the internet through the mobile phone service. Okay, you generally have to pay for that. You get a certain amount of bandwidth. Some of the more expensive phone plans give you quite a lot of capacity, but ultimately the internet is a access point to lots and lots of different pieces of information. Okay, so what is the internet really? The internet you can think of as the road network. Okay, so if there's a road, you can travel on the road, you can catch a bus on the road, you can drive your own car on the road, you can take lots and lots of different sorts of vehicles, and you can go from place to place. Now, what are these places? Well, these places are networks in their own right. You have a network, you have devices possibly connected through Wi-Fi, you have devices connected with a cable, and of course you have a connection from your wireless router, from your broadband router, into a socket on the wall, or in fact the mobile network if you so choose, and that gives you access to all of the other networks that are potentially anywhere in the world. Okay, anywhere in the world. Anything that's connected to the internet, any network that's connected to the internet, you most probably can access. Now, of course, life isn't as easy as that. Banking applications protect their users. You can't just connect to a bank's network unless you're one of their customers. Alternatively, other sources, sources like, for example, retailers, they want you to shop. You can't just get what you want without paying for it, of course, but they want you to see their range of services. Okay, and again, with any of these pieces of technology, you can connect to one of these networks, for example, Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda, etc., etc. Each of these organizations and so many more have their own network, and you need to connect to their network. And in the same way as you can phone them up by dialing their telephone number, in the world of the internet, we have something called domains and we have something called web addresses. Quite often, www dot something is a location on the internet. Okay, on the internet. And these locations, as I say, are what we call the World Wide Web. Okay, so the World Wide Web is a set of resources that live on the internet. Okay, so these are two quite separate things, and the way to think about it is that the World Wide Web is a little bit like trains. The internet is a little bit like tracks. Okay, so the tracks are there and the trains are run on those tracks, and you can catch a train and you can go to different locations. Okay, and the different locations are the places where you get information. So for example, if you want to look at the BBC website, you take the internet, you use the World Wide Web to get you to a location which is the BBC's website. Okay, the BBC's website. And the BBC's website, the images, the videos, the writing is delivered to your device using the World Wide Web. And the World Wide Web, as I say, that information travels along the internet. However, the World Wide Web information is incredibly complicated to use, and therefore you need what we call a web browser. Okay, a web browser is the piece of software that you need on your device, and it will be built into your mobile phone. It'll be built into your tablet, your laptop, your desktop. These devices now all have a built-in web browser, which makes it nice and easy to look at the information that's being presented to you across the internet, delivered by the World Wide Web. Okay, so a little bit technical there perhaps. I'm trying to keep it relatively easy, but the World Wide Web is the main reason for using the internet these days. There are of course other reasons, and one of the other biggest reasons is what we call email. Okay, so the email can be delivered across the World Wide Web, but sometimes there is what we call a different language by which the emails travel across the internet to you, but almost invariably you will use the World Wide Web because it's nice and easy to use, and your messages, your emails will arrive at your device as and when you need them. Okay, so the internet transports information from its location. So of course the BBC's internet servicing devices are different to Tesco's devices, are different to, for example, B&Q's devices, different to all the other locations where information can be found. That information travels across the internet in a form, in a language called the World Wide Web, and is presented to you. Okay, now of course sometimes the BBC doesn't broadcast, and when it doesn't broadcast you see a blank screen. Likewise, there are locations on the internet that don't always broadcast. So to make our lives easier, rather than long, complicated telephone numbers, just like we have an address book in our mobile phone, we have an address book. Likewise, we don't use the complications of the what we call the underlying protocol. Instead, we have nice, easy names like www.tesco.com. Okay, so www.tesco.com has a long and complicated number, but you don't need to worry about that. To make life easy, we just remember the names. Okay, the names are nice and easy to remember, and if we put the name in correctly, if we spell it correctly, we will almost always get to that location where there's going to be lots and lots of useful information that you're interested in. Of course, we don't always know what's available out there, and so the next concept I'm going to talk about is the what we call the search engine. So, for example, if you don't know the exact name of, for example, the AA, so if you've got a problem with your car, it's not called AA.com, it's actually called the AA.com. And likewise, there are lots and lots of places on the internet that don't quite have the obvious name, because sometimes the obvious name clashes with somebody else's use of that obvious name. So what we do is we use something called a search engine. The most common one is called Google, but Microsoft have their own. It's called Microsoft Bing, Bing, and likewise Apple has something called Safari. Okay, so Safari is really a web browser. The web browser is what we use to translate the complicated information that comes across from a location into a nice, easily readable form. And if we don't really know what we're looking for, we use a search engine to say something. For example, let's say you want your Windows changed, window installation companies. Okay, so we'll type in window installation companies into a web browser, and we'll get a range of results, and we can choose from that range of results. So you can really think of the search engine a little bit like the yellow pages we used to have, except of course the yellow pages is quite often out of date, can become out of date, and the search engine is kept almost up to date on a daily basis. Okay, so we're running out of time now, so I'm going to be saying bye to you shortly. My next proper show is in fact tomorrow at 4 o'clock. I will recap some of the things I've been talking about today, for those that didn't know that I was going to be broadcasting today. So I'll recap some of that information and try and move forwards with other applications that we find using technology. I've mentioned the internet. We'll talk about the internet a bit more, about the different things that are delivered by the internet and other applications that are available through technology. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll be with